guys, it's Reptivity here, coming with the mescaline citrate Cielo extraction I promised to you guys. First off, I started with 111 grams of Trichocereus brasigai Montrose cactus powder, so this may be a higher percentage than other cacti, so if you have a lower yield than mine, do not feel like discouraged or anything like that. It's just each cactus is more potent, less potent, just depends. I already mixed the 111 grams cactus powder and 28 grams of lime powder together in the bowl. So the next step we're going to do here is adding 144 grams of water, and we also have another 144 grams as a reserve. So I have them in 2 water bottles here, separated at 144 grams each. So what we're going to do here is we're going to mix in the first part. I need to figure out. Okay, at this point we are going to add the 144 grams of water. First 144 grams, not the reserve. You don't want it too wet because then it's just going to become too mushy. You want it to be kind of like a Play-Doh consistency. As you can see, it's already starting to clump up. But I like to honestly go in with my hands at this point, so I kind of just scoop it off the spoon. You are going to have to change your gloves after this most likely, or at least wipe off your gloves just so it's cleaner. But I like to go in with my hands, just kind of get it all nice and mixed up. Usually the first 144 grams, or well, usually the first run of water, excuse me, don't go by 144 grams on every extraction. It just depends on the weight of your whole extraction. You can even do 10 grams or even 5 grams of cactus powder if you'd like. Usually the first amount of water is not enough. See, as it's just kind of crumbly. You don't want it crumbly. You want it just be kind of like a Play-Doh consistency. So at this point, we are going to only add just a tiny pinch in. Keep mixing. Now that's still most likely not going to be enough, but you just want to make sure that you do not add too much water, because if you do, it's going to cause a problem. I do recommend weighing your increments of water when you're first extracting and first learning to extract. If you don't, you will most likely have a problem and become too mushy, so you're going to have to add more cactus powder and more lime and all that stuff, or you're going to have to do a whole bunch of other things for the extraction. We're still at powder at the bottom. Just keep adding it just tiny bits more. Don't want to add too much. A lot, or a little goes a lot of ways. Now we are at the consistency we want. After adding about half of the weight of the 144 grams of reserve. We want it to the consistency about Play-Doh, as we can see, where if you crack it open, it doesn't crumble. At this point, you only have about a 45-minute increment time where you have to work with your product, because it will gel and become like a jelly product. You want to work fast. At this point, you want to go to your coffee press, French press. You also want to bottle off your extra water because you do not want to have a problem while you're extracting. Put that away, you do not need it anymore. We are going to now break up the clumps of the cactus powder. Add. I really wouldn't exceed more than 110 to 115 grams. If you do, it may be just too much for your French press and you might have a problem. Okay, now you have it all broken up into your French press. We are going to now weigh 222 grams of methyl ketone substitute. This is going to only be our first run. We are going to do less methyl ketone our second. That's 223 grams right there. Basically 222. Doesn't matter at that amount. We will dump it in now. And we will take the rod that we're going to use, and I'm going to use an electric one, just so it makes it easier on myself and I don't have to mix it with a spoon. We're going to do increments of 3 minutes here. Okay, after it's been your first 3 minutes, we are going to take this to our lid of the French press, and we are going to take it to our funnel. I'm just using some coffee filters and a metal funnel. I would not recommend using plastic because most plastics will be eaten up by methyl ketones. Substitute, excuse me. We are going to press down on this firmly, but not too firmly because we do not want to gain water into our extraction. And we are going to pour it off. Remember, you're not going to get much of your liquid back from your first extraction. The first extraction, honestly, is just liquefying the powder. It's just drains. We're going to push a little bit more, not too hard. And we're going to pour it off again. At this point, we just put that off to the side, let it drain. Next part is going to be weighing out 166 grams of methyl ketone substitute. So we are going to take our jar that is full of it, and we are going to weigh it. So the next step is we're going to weigh 166 grams of methyl ketone substitute, 144, 160, and 163. There we go. 167. Doesn't matter, being a couple grams off. And we're just going to dump it back in. And then the next step is mixing it all again for another 6 runs. 166 grams, just mixing it for 3 minutes in each increment. You can use a spoon. It tires your arm out, I'm not going to lie to you, but I just use an electric hand mixer, just makes it so much easier. But yeah, that is the next step. After you get your extraction done, you're going to add this to the fridge for 6 hours at least, sometimes 8. Then you're going to set it out for 30 minutes to get room temperature to add your citrate powder. This is the test run of the 6th and 7th pool of the cactus powder. This process isn't necessarily needed if you feel confident enough that you got all the water out, but I do recommend doing just a slight test run of just a little bit of your product, just to make sure. Also, a stir bar isn't always needed. This just makes it faster, and you don't have to do it. You can just honestly set the citric acid into the liquid and let it sit on your shelf for 3 days and it'll form. But this is just an extra lazy way. I am just going to dump in a single gram of citric acid. And you want to see that clouding. And now we can set in the magnetic stir bar and put the lid back on. And we can turn that turn on. And we're just going to mix it. And we should see citric acid form very quickly. I will come back when it starts to form. And if you look just closely, you can see the crystals floating around in there. And this was just the test run. So now that we know that this is all good and there's not too much water in the mix, you can go from there and actually do the full thing of your rest of your extraction. Now that we finished the first part and know that it is 100% good and there's not too much water in the extraction, I decanted the second part, got all the water out from the bottom, just a few droplets left, and all is good. I just did it like how I did the filter extraction earlier, just decanting it through the filter setup with coffee filters. And now I'm gonna let it sit for 30 minutes. Now we are going to add our 5 grams to the extraction. And you're going to look for that milkiness. As you can see, it is starting to milk. Now you're looking for that milkiness from the citric acid. And once you dumped in your citric acid, I'm going to cap it off and turn on the mixer. Now, it will form these things quite fast. It wants to focus. It does not want to focus. There it goes. As you can see, the crystals are already starting to form. And that's what we're looking for. Now we are going to wait 30 minutes to fully let it crash out the crystals. But as you can see, this extraction was successful. This is going to be a high yield IC. At this point, I decanted the mescaline citrate by shaking the jars and then going through a filtration just like this. And then you're going to have jars that are going to still have mescaline like this. You're going to just take some clean substitute and just mix around. At the point of the process, you are done fully getting the mescaline separated from your methylethyl ketone substitute. We are going to now take some clean methylethyl ketone substitute and run it through so it cleans up the mescaline so it's a little bit whiter. We are going to just dump in clean mix sub. And you can see that it's already just getting a little bit lighter. At this point, I am pretty happy with the color. Maybe I'm going to do one more run just because of a little bit up there. But yeah, this color I'm pretty happy. At this point, you have your clean mescaline citrate and you just need to dry it. So what I personally like to do is I like sticking it on the food dehydrator with the full funnel, but I like to stick also another filter on top so that it doesn't like blow all of the mescaline everywhere. It should be dry within the next like 20 minutes fully, and then you can weigh it and you're all good. And there is your dry mescaline citrate. I have to weigh it still to know my yield, but this is pretty much the end of the video. I hope this got helped for you guys. Yeah, this is it. Great quality, beautiful white color. I will post my yield on the actual description of the video.